Shock Monkey Radio is entertainment for adults, by adults, and the views and opinions expressed here do not reflect upon the sponsors or FXBG Public Radio. For additional information, please refer to the United States Bill of Rights. Stand warned. Let's go Braves and let's go Brandon. Hey, can I get a little bit more of my headphones? Thank you, sir. My ears are still plugged up. I'm back. I am back. I caught the COVID in Outer Banks. It was awful. I'm not going to lie. Felt like I got hit by a train and every passenger got out of the train to kick me while I was down. It was by far the worst illness I ever had, short of post-surgery once when I had this anesthesiologist. He gave me too much gas and it messed me up good. So the good news is that I don't need a vaccine at this point, even though I wish I had gotten the vaccine at times while I was sick. But then again, my mother, father, and sister all had the vaccine and still got sick like I did as well. I think there's a lesson there for all of us. But now that my system has assimilated this thing, I don't have to worry about it anymore. Sure, I may certainly be sick again many more times in my life, and it may even be a mutated version of COVID. But now I feel very confident that I will certainly survive. Not that I was scared, mind you, but considering that I'm a heavy smoker and heavy weight-wise, I felt like I had a chance at being taken out by this thing. But now I feel immortal, and my concern about COVID has been set to zero because all of my family survived it. Now my only worries about it are all associated with how irrational and stupid governments and businesses that may try to intrude upon my life because of their idiotic bureaucratic policies. Anyway, I'm back, I'm bearded, and I survived COVID. And if you came to my house this Halloween, now you got it too. Anyway, this is Shock Monkey Radio. I'm the Madman, and I'm back. And I want to remind you to go over to my Patreon. Go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio. Become a patron, $3 a month. It's really not that much to ask. 1 beer a month buys me 1 beer a month. You know? Give up 1 beer and give it to me, basically. Because let's be honest, that's what I'm going to do with the money. I would appreciate that. Also, for those of you complaining about the audio podcast not getting out in time, hey, you're getting a free podcast. All right? And by now you should know I want you watching on YouTube and Patreon anyway. All right?
And also, it's my fault.
Don't listen to EK. It's not his fault. I'm lazy. I had COVID. I felt like I had every right to be lazy the last 2 weeks. All right? But it's not like I didn't, keep myself from writing. But go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio. You can become a patron there. Or if you just want to send me a one-time payment through the Cash App, I have a hashtag ShockMonkeyRadio. Send me some money there. Maybe I'll buy some Bitcoin. And 1 EMP and it's all gone, my friends. Anyway, so yeah, let's get on with the show. Speaking of Halloween, I hope you had a pleasant celebration on that holiday. I hope you didn't make yourself too sick on candy, like I almost did. But I think that had more to do with the vodka. Anyway, I got some things to say about Halloween. First of all, coconut has no business in candy. I know some of you like coconut in your candy, but some people like pineapple on pizza, and some people are clearly idiots. Coconut is not candy. It is a survival food provided by God to keep shipwrecked sailors motivating to getting off a deserted island. So Mounds, Almond Joy, stop. Knock it off. Coconut is not candy. Sorry for ranting, but I don't think this point could not be made enough. Anyway. Trick-or-treating is weird, isn't it? It's kind of like legal extortion. Hey, this is a nice little haunted house you got here. Haunted Halloween house you got here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. Hey. Why do we tolerate this? Just because it's children doesn't make it not extortion. Sure. You could say that if you don't give them treats, there is no guarantee that you will get a trick. And tricks obviously include things like smashing pumpkins or toilet papering the house or flaming bags of poo, that kind of thing. But it's still extortion. Trick or treat? How about shot or stabbed? You got to pick one. Hell no. Neither. I'm not playing your weird game, Two-Face. Anyway, you know I always wanted to do a couple things for handing out candy on Halloween that I never got to do yet. Anyway, I always wanted to have a friend and I dress up as God and the devil, and they're playing chess. And every time someone walks up, God makes a move and says, checkmate, and the devil says, oh, darn it, or you darn it, or something like that, and it has to give the kids the candy. Maybe that's dumb, but maybe not as dumb as my other idea of two baseball fans watching and commenting upon the World Series as people come up to beg for candy. Then you have a friend hiding in the bushes who periodically throws a baseball to you like you're catching a foul ball. It's probably dumb. Saying it out loud makes it sound dumb. It was funny in my head, I guess. I have one more thing to say about Halloween, and it's something I saw on Trick-or-Treaters, which was kids running around collecting candy in their school backpacks. Now, I love that. I mean, you just skip a step. Absolutely. I remember being a kid and taking all those Mounds and Almond Joys to school to trade with my friends. Did you ever do that? I joke about Mounds and Almond Joy, but everyone has their preferences, and trading candy has always been one of those coolest aspects in post-Halloween school days. You can trade info, too. Which house was giving out the full-size candy bars? For next year. That kind of thing. Anyway, I saw those kids with the backpacks, and it took me back to my halcyon days of my youth. So who doesn't love Halloween? Anyway, I hope you had a pleasant and enjoyable Devil's Night. Yes, there's alcohol in this. So I don't know if you know this about Superman, but there's a couple things. Like Superman is now bisexual, apparently, in the comic books. And they're changing truth, justice, and the American way to truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Now, superhero comics are uniquely American, and Superman is the first of said superheroes. When Superman came onto the scene, America was in the darkest days of the Great Depression and on the cusp of a world war that defined the 20th century. The young men who volunteered to go fight after Pearl Harbor probably formed their moral stances while reading Action Comics. Truth, justice, and the American way is not solely the domain of Americans. All people of all nations of the world can strive towards that ideal. As we all know, America was far from realizing the full scope of human freedom and civil rights as it was laid out by Thomas Jefferson in our nation's founding documents. Jefferson saw a future end to America's sins even from over a century away. And in the 30s and 40s, America obviously still needed to strive for truth and justice, which was the American way. Because the American way is better than the Canadian way. It's better than the Russian way. It's better than the European way, etc. In fact, striving for those American ideals is a never-ending battle that even Superman and Batman can agree on. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Speaking of which, Superman in particular has been compared to the story of Moses and perhaps even Jesus. But the phrase truth, justice, and the Judeo-Christian way just doesn't have the same ring to it. But this great nation of ours was designed and built by white Christian men following the inspiration of the first superhero, Jesus, which in turn led to future generations of Americans to continue to strive for truth, justice, and the American way. However, the idea that white Christian men setting the stage for the best of all possible governments is so infuriating to some people that they want to erase it from history, like a Stalin-era photograph. The preference of globalism over nationalism in the modern dialogue is designed to undermine all the great things that have come out of the United States of America. We're not allowed to claim Superman anymore because he belongs to the world? Kal-El was raised in America by Americans, and everyone who has read Red Sun should know how relevant that is to the mythos. Globalism doesn't work. Just look at the European Union. In my mind, Superman will always represent truth, justice, and the American way. And when someone changes American way to a better tomorrow, it suggests that the American way is not interested in a better tomorrow. And that is why this change undermines the greatness of the American enterprise. But Soups is a fictional character, and he doesn't say anything that some writer didn't put in his mouth. And as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I can tell, Superman is not public domain yet. So the DC creators have every right to do what they want with their intellectual property. I couldn't care less about Superman's sexuality. However, I am an adult. But comic books are still marketed towards children, and I find that selling sexualized literature to minors to be morally repugnant and the sole domain of pedophiles. When someone puts up a statue of Superman or Thomas Jefferson, it's not about the character of that person. It's what that person means as a symbol to the viewer, which is often private and subjective to each individual. Besides, it's Superman's son who is bisexual, not Kal-El. And it's kind of like when Robin was killed and everyone was like, oh no, Dick Grayson is so cool. But actually it was Jason Todd that was killed. And so, everyone wanted to kill him. In fact, I was shocked there was only one suspect in his death. And speaking of Robins, Tim Drake also recently came out as bi. But that will never taint the joy and love I had for those original Chuck Dixon stories I loved when I was younger. I always thought that Navy officer ranks were always cooler than Army and Marine Corps officer ranks. Ensign always makes me think of Star Trek. It's better than second lieutenant, if you ask me. And even though captain sounds better than lieutenant, but a Navy captain is leaps and bounds above an Army and a Marine Corps captain. Major has always seemed silly to me. Major asshole. Major first class Philip asshole. Lieutenant Commander is way cooler for an 04, if you ask me. Now, Commander is my favorite Navy rank. Commander Skywalker, do you copy? This is Rogue 2. This is Rogue 2. 05 in the Army is Lieutenant Colonel, and it sounds like a bowel disease, and Colonel sounds like it's fatal. And you're in the final stages of it. Admirals and generals are a different story. Brigadier general is better than rear admiral lower half. Because in the Navy, it sounds like you get the butthole, while the rear admiral upper half gets the mouth when it comes to raping the enlisted sailors. Now, I'm not trying to make fun of officers. Yeah, I am. Anyway, but when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And not only did that task seem daunting as a kid because, you start thinking about the way you have to live your life, the way you have to, what you have to do, You got to go to college. I got to go to college. I got to become an officer in the military. You don't want to be the dumb science. No offense to the scientist officer, astronauts or anything, but you don't want to be that. I didn't want to be a scientist. I wanted to be a shuttle commander or a pilot or something like that. I mean, because flying in space, it's got to be real easy. Not a whole lot you can run into. If you, I mean, really, it's more like you got to worry more about stuff running into you. Anyway, so I wanted to be an astronaut, and so as time went on, growing up as a kid, I started to realize I had to get glasses. Can't be a pilot. Can't be a pilot if you're wearing glasses. And that's just one of those dream killers you grow up with. So you grow up, and I want to be an astronaut, but no, I mean, my bad eyesight. Yeah, I'm overweight. Even in the Navy, I was overweight, and so, I had to enlist. I didn't go to college because who can afford it? Holy cow! And so, I went to enlisted, and it would have taken years for me to be an officer. And even then, I couldn't have been a pilot. Probably could never have been an astronaut in that career path. So instead, I'd have to get involved in some sort of scientist career. It's like, you get to be one of those scientist astronauts that nobody remembers. Anyway, so you grow a little bitter and cynical about that kind of thing, and so some days you just wake up and want to make fun of officer ranks because they're silly. Rear Admiral, upper half. They just call those people admirals, right? Yeah, they just say admiral. They don't say rear admiral, upper half. Yeah, the vice admiral might make fun of him because he's no longer the freshman or the sophomore. He's like the junior. He's like the junior in high school. So he's gonna say rear admiral, upper half, rear admiral, lower half. All right. Yeah, one more thing before we get into the news worth knowing. And I was thinking while I was very, very sick, I was in a fever dream or something like that. How horrible was music around the time that Mary Had a Little Lamb was top of the charts? You know what I mean? And so I did a little research into this about Mary Had a Little Lamb. And, everyone knows this tune. I should hope. I think everyone knows this tune. Mary had a little lamb. You know the one. Anyway, so I did a little research into Mary Had a Little Lamb. And so anyway, it was based upon a poem that was written, I guess, published. It was by this publishing firm, Marsh, Capon, and Lyon. It was written by Sarah Josepha Hale, and that was, I guess, published on May 24th, 1830. And I don't know if you know this, but they didn't have the Billboard Hot 100 in 1830. And so when it comes to all these like popular tunes from all these like 1830s and so forth, because we didn't have Billboard and they didn't even have recordings, I think when in 1830, I think they were still 50 years away from having recorded audio, recorded music. And of course, the first thing people start recording is music. The guy who invented the recording was Edison, I think. The guy who invented audio recording, the first thing he didn't record it, I'm certain, had to have been music. It probably wasn't some dude talking to himself. Testing, 1, 2. Ooh, the first recording ever. It's like if you're going to record something, you want to record something awesome like music. Anyway, but the popular stuff back in the 1830s, it wasn't, was the most downloaded song on iTunes or anything like that. There wasn't even the most popular record that was being bought. It was sheet music. And so what's interesting is that these publishing companies, they hold the rights to these songs because they weren't really recorded. They were just sheet music that people bought. And so at one point in time, Mary Had a Little Lamb was like the #1 bought sheet music in the country. So it officially makes it the most popular song because when you heard music back in the 1830s and, up to the 1870s, it was most frequently or had to be live every single time. And so you had your local person from church, your organist, your pianist from church. That's where you heard music, probably at church every week. Sometimes you'd have a little shindig in town and they got some guy playing a fiddle, some guy with a jug, and that's how people heard music. And some people could say that, you can long for those times. It's like live music really is an experience, and it's something that we all had at one time, but live music is still something to be experienced even to this day. But there was a time when Mary Had a Little Lamb was the most popular song in America. Now, what's funny is I was kind of curious, like what other songs are popular around the same time. And so it was like when it comes to like Mary Had a Little Lamb, let me tell you about other popular sheet music in the 1830s. All right. Here's a title. I know a bank where the wild thyme blows. Wild thyme blows. Excuse me. There was a song called Jim Crow. There was a song called My Heart in the Lute. And there was the Pilgrim Father. Some of you may know it as the Landing of the Pilgrims or the Breaking Waves Dashed High. That was also a big popular song in 1830. Obviously, America, my country 'tis of thee. That was big in 1832. Anyway, the bloom is on the rise. Bloom is on the rye. Also known as My Pretty Jane. My faith looks up to thee. Rock of Ages. Rock of Ages was big in 1832. And so I think it's funny because music is so fleeting now. Everyone's dropping tracks. Millions of people dropping tracks every day. And, and in the 1830s, all you had to do was tell a little story about a lamb following a girl to school. And I think that's a little bit hilarious because just the way that because after all, it's 1830s, the printing press was very new and a lot of people were printing sheet music. Imagine the typeset you had to use for printing sheet music back in the day. That must have been tedious, especially if you didn't know music.
Yeah, I gotta imagine.
Yeah, if you didn't know music. Anyway, I bet they had special music tile sets and stuff like that. Man, it must have been horrible back in those days. I mean, but you give and take a little. You give and take a little. We have all this music at our fingertips. We can, it's all that radio gaga stuff. It's just some background noise to all of us these days. But at one time, it was you had to buy the sheet music, take it to your church, and in between services or something, you practice "Mary Had a Little Lamb" because the preacher didn't want you playing that devil music in the church. To bat a lamb, it's like, but like the Lamb of God. That was the excuse they made to the preachers. It's like it's a metaphor for the Lamb of God. But I like reading all those titles of those hits from the 1830s, and because it was a different time. It was a different time in America where it was pastoral. Obviously, we hadn't been through Pearl Harbor. We haven't been through the First World War. We hadn't developed the cynicism to make things like jazz and blues and rock and roll. They didn't have the. Yeah, I mean, think about all that music that America started, all the badass types of music that we started after the era of Mary Had a Little Lamb. Because for hundreds of years, Americans were like, this is awful. This is children's music. Anyway, because that's where it's that's what it's been resigned to now. Mary Had a Little Lamb is not something, a deep cut on a radio show, you know what I'm saying? No, it's for kids. Searching into Google, type Mary Had a Little Lamb, I get a bunch of kids stuff popping up. It's like, no, I'm an adult. Where's the adult tab? Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the news worth knowing. Shapiro at the middle of his show, he goes, "This is the fastest growing podcast and radio show in the nation." Fastest growing conservative podcast in the nation. I was thinking maybe I should say, like, all right, after let's get into the news worth knowing, and then welcome to Shock Monkey. This is Shock Monkey Radio, the slowest growing podcast in the nation.
We need a guitar riff too, but like maybe the opposite.
Get in the studio. Get in Studio B. Speaking of which, go to fxbgpublicradio.com. If you're in the Fredericksburg area or nearbys, you can rent some studio time. Do your own podcast. Do
like booking.
Yeah, booking, the booking tab, right? Or button or whatever.
And if you don't see what you want, call us.
Should turn on your mic sometimes.
It should be picking me up. I have the condenser in.
Oh, you have the condenser on too?
Yeah, so when I yell, it should pick me up.
We're also.
I believe I'm faint. I sound faint, but I'm definitely there.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, we also got a new camera coming too. FXBG Public Radio, check it out. Anyway, let's get into the news worth knowing. I did it twice. Hopefully you went to the polls. Hopefully you voted for Glenn Youngkin. But as you know, it's election day here in Virginia. And so our first article is McAuliffe says Trump's name 13 times in a 15-minute speech after saying governor's race isn't about Trump. Anyway, a day after claiming the race was, quote, not about Donald Trump, Virginia gubernatorial candidate Terry McAuliffe evoked the former president again in a string of election eve tweets that couldn't appear to stop talking about them at a rally in Fairfax. Excuse me. McAuliffe often brought up the former President Trump on the campaign trail. Oh, it says former President Trump. So, okay, we're all on the same page. Guess. On the campaign trail in the press for months when talking about Republican opponent Glenn Youngkin's agenda. CNN's Dana Bash even joked that she would take that she would take a swig of her nearby drink every time McAuliffe said Trump's name during the interview earlier this month. Anyway, and so McAuliffe surprised reporters in Virginia Beach Saturday when he told a group of supporters that the race was not about Trump. It was a significant shift in tone, media observed. When even your own, in your pocket news organizations are getting sarcastic with you like that, man, I don't think you're going to win, bro. Anyway, the tide appeared to turn back on Monday as McAuliffe retreated to his initial strategy of tying his opponent to 45. Quote, today, Trump said that he and Glenn get along very well together and believe in many of the same policies. McAuliffe tweeted. We have rejected the racism, the hate, the division, and the lies of Donald Trump twice. And tomorrow we will do it again. McAuliffe's account retweeted the same message. Stop Trumpkin. What a dork. The Democrat himself referred to his opponent as Glenn Trumpkin at a Monday rally and declared he was against Donald Trump in khakis. That's kind of clever. In McAuliffe's final election eve pitch, a New York Times reporter counted him uttering Trump's name 13 times in a 15-minute speech. Why? I guess because he's been doing it. There's like nothing else to do. I've heard all this nonsense before. Anyway, the Democrat also predicted that Youngkin would be the catalyst of a Trump 2024 announcement. I'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Right? In his earlier, as his earlier tweet indicated, McAuliffe has no plans to backtrack on racist accusations against Youngkin, despite being proven false by fact checkers. More than once, McAuliffe has told the press Youngkin wants to quote ban a book by Black author Toni Morrison called Beloved, when in reality the Republicans sided with parents who want to be notified if and when their children are assigned to read the graphic material about the horrors of slavery. Virginia voters head to the polls Tuesday as Youngkin tries to become the first Republican to win statewide there since 2009. So, yeah, this is the biggest thing in Virginia right now. If you're outside of the state, it's election day. Hopefully, if you're in Virginia, you're in this race because I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Terry McAuliffe, it's he damned himself when he went in that debate and said, I don't think parents should have any say in what we're teaching your kids. And I was like, dude, that is, I think that everybody on both sides of the aisle agrees that, that's not, we don't work for you. You work for us, and that's what's been going on in school boards in Virginia lately, and that's why education is like the number one issue in the election here in Virginia. Because people are saying is like, you are our elected representatives. The education system, public education system is for the public, and, we are in charge of you. You're not in charge of like, because you think critical race theory is cool doesn't mean we all think it is too. We know about you elitist limousine liberals. It's like Colin Kaepernick. I'm so sick and tired of freaking millionaires saying how bad they got it. You know what I'm saying? EK's just like, yeah, right. I'm sick and tired of millionaires trying to tell me how awful the world is. It's not awful for you. If Colin Kaepernick gave me $5,000 a month, $5,000 a month on my Patreon, it would change my entire life. It would change FXBG Public Radio. $5K. And you're out there saying, the NFL Combine is slavery. Go blow it out your millionaire ass. Anyway, McAuliffe is that kind of limousine liberal. Anyway. Anyway, let's talk about Florida Man. There's a spin on this one, though. This is like a curveball. Florida man faces daily fines for massive Let's Go Brandon sign and pro-Trump sign. Quote, that's free speech. A Florida homeowner is facing fines after hanging massive political banners supporting former President Trump from his home, including one reading, "Let's go Brandon." They're already printing those up. I know all the conservative people are putting out "Let's go Brandon" t-shirts. They're bandwagoning on that like everyone else. Anyway. Capitalism. Anyway, I'm here on the beach. I got a lot of traffic and people needed to see what I believe in. Homeowner Marvin Peavy of Seagrove Beach told WMBB, quote, that's free speech, and I wanted everyone to know that I'm Republican and I'm supporting Donald Trump. The flags were almost 3 stories tall and have red backgrounds with white lettering. One reads, Trump won, and other says, let's go Brandon. And I'm looking at the picture now. I guess it's an apartment complex. I could see while other people. Anyway, my opinion might have changed on this. Anyway, a South Walton Community Code enforcement hearing was held last month and found that Trump won banner violates the county's land development code. Walton County Code Compliance official Michael Lynch told WMBB the land use code preserves the visual aesthetics of the beach community along Florida's panhandle. PV is being fined $50 a day, which he said violates his right to free speech. Quote, people admire that stand-up, and we've got to start standing up. People admire people that stand up. Okay. And we have to start standing up, Bill Fletcher, the chairman of Walton County Republican Executive Committee, said of Peavy. Quote, he is the epitome of somebody who will stand up for his First Amendment right. Supporters of Peavy also came out to his home on Sunday and expressed shock over the daily fines. Quote, I had attended the code enforcement meeting when this was brought up, and I was quite shocked that when they said they were going to fine him $50 a day for a banner that's on his private property. Supporter Tabitha Howard told WMBB. Peavy said he had no intention to remove the banners and that people across the county have pledged to help pay for the fines. That's awesome. He added to the outlet that one woman in Louisiana even offered to pay for the fines for the next 2 years. Anyway, Peavy first hoisted the Trump 2020 flag on his home last year during the election cycle, but removed it after Inauguration Day. That banner did not violate any codes because it was up during an election year. So I guess he's a fair player. Anyway, he then hung up the Trump won banner in May, which was followed by the Let's Go Brandon banner on Saturday. Let's Go Brandon, you know about Let's Go Brandon. Earlier this year, commonly chanted sport events, concerts, and other venues. Another hearing over the banners is scheduled for November 17th. Peavy's fines will be due if the code compliance magistrate finds him in violation again. So I'm looking at this picture, and if all of that is his private house, I think it should be fine and legal for him to do. But I can't tell if if it's an apartment complex. Anyway, because if it's an apartment complex and other people live there, his banner shouldn't be coming down the stairwell. You know, I think you're taking up too much space. And I think that, if you live in that apartment complex. But I mean, if it's a private house, what's the problem? I don't think he should be fined. And I'm glad people are helping him out. Anyway, let's go on to this next story. A lot of pop-ups on Fox News. Anyway, that's where I get my stuff from, by the way. My news. CNN analyst compares Let's Go Brandon to rhetoric from ISIS, Nazis, and the KKK. It's my opinion that it's like the first person who brings up Hitler or the Nazis loses an argument. All right? And the left has been losing arguments for a long time now. Anyway, liberal CNN political analyst Joe Lockhart managed to compare the anti-Biden rallying cry, Let's Go Brandon, to coded rhetoric from Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, and ISIS in one tweet as the corporate media continued its meltdown over the chant. It's funny because it's like, how can you get mad at Fox? Because the line, corporate media continued its meltdown, is a link to, obviously, an opinion article. Because that is opinion. Anyway, Lockhart, a former Clinton press secretary, tweeted Monday, "You know who also had coded statements like Brandon? ISIS, the Klan, Nazis, beginning to get the point?" Ugh. You pretentious bastard. Anyway, the phrase became an internet sensation last month after an NBC reporter at a NASCAR Xfinity Series race incorrectly reported that fans who were in the stands were chanting "Let's go Brandon" following a victory by driver Brandon Brown when they are really shouting "F Joe Biden." Quote, "Let's go Brandon" was quickly adopted by the president's critics as a subtle PG way to mock Biden. The F Joe Biden chants, which began at some large events across the country as the president's poll numbers declined, have now been replaced in some venues with "Let's go Brandon" chants. Anyway, however, liberal journalists and pundits have become outraged at the rallying cry. Yeah, it's really kind of sudden, isn't it? It didn't get us all bent out of shape for the F Joe Biden chants. Anyway, Lockhart isn't the only one with the overtop comparison, as the chant has also been labeled vulgar, trollish, and not patriotic. And a Southwest pilot who may have uttered the phrase was compared to an ISIS sympathizer. I wouldn't have put it like that. If you followed up that story about the pilot Southwest who apparently said "Let's go Brandon" over the PA, I wouldn't put it that way. Anyway, Lockhart's tweet was quickly hit with the backlash. Quote, "I hope a family member is checking in on you," GOP communications specialist Matt Whitlock responded. Man. People get cold-blooded on Twitter, don't they? Anyway, in 2020, the Donald Trump campaign called on CNN to fire Lockhart after the network analysts speculated on Twitter whether or not Trump suffered from stroke he had hidden it from public. Quote, "CNN should fire Joe Lockhart, a lifetime failure who thought it was a great idea for a fellow loser, Michael Dukakis, to put on that stupid helmet for knowingly pushing a conspiracy theory about President Trump's health," the campaign said. "If another CNN employee said similar things about Barack Obama, they'd be fired immediately, so the same standard should be applied here." Lockhart, an outspoken Democrat, also raised eyebrows for attacking former Covington Catholic High School student Nick Sandman after his network settled a $250 million defamation lawsuit from him last year. Yeah, that kid's probably living on the easy street right now. Quote, "I'm watching tonight because it's important, but I don't have to watch this snot-nosed entitled kid from Kentucky," Lockhart tweeted during the Republican National Convention. He said that Trump had a stroke and they hid it. It's kind of like Biden pooping at the Vatican. Anyway, it's like I said, like the first person who mentions Nazis or Hitler, they clearly lost the argument, because that's always the go-to move of people who are out of arguments. All right. Before "Let's go Brandon," people were talking about like all the people chanting "F Joe Biden" at stadiums and stuff like that, until that NASCAR race at Talladega, and that happened. And then all of a sudden they got a G-rated version of it. And it wasn't, it was organic. It appeared naturally, apparently, and so absolutely it was hijacked. And then after that, after "Let's go Brandon" really gained some traction, now they're all saying, all these liberals are saying, "Oh, it's like it's vulgar. It means the F word, It's like, but you're all cheering at Robert De Niro at the Oscars. You're all happy Madonna's talking about wanting to blow up the White House. And Johnny Depp gets up there today. When was the last time an actor shot a president? Go buy some scarves, Johnny Depp." Anyway, I think it's interesting how mad they are now, because it's November 2nd. Today is November 2nd. It's election day. And it looks like, I don't know, I haven't been keeping up with polls right now. I'll check it out later. But I mean, I think that Glenn Youngkin is going to win here in Virginia. And there are other elections. It's just right now, nationally speaking, this election in Virginia is kind of the biggest one in the country. Because it matters. It matters that Virginia is may become a purple state again. It's been blue since 2009, as they were saying. All right. I don't want to kick an old doddering man too much. So, I mean, White House rolls out strategy to reduce military and veteran suicide, calling it a national security crisis. Okay. The White House on Tuesday announced a new comprehensive strategy to address and reduce military and veteran suicide in the United States, billing the issue as a public health and national security crisis. A new strategy focuses on a number of key components, including improving lethal means safety, in order to ensure time and space between a person in crisis and their access to lethal means, including firearms and medication. That means putting people in prison, you know. Enhancing crisis care. Increasing access to and delivery of effective care, addressing the upstream risk and protective factors like preventing and addressing increased financial strain, lack of housing, food insecurity, and unemployment, and increasing research coordination and data sharing throughout the federal government. The White House said that since 2010, more than 65,000 veterans have died by suicide, a number greater than the total number of deaths during the Vietnam War and the operations in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. The White House said that for more than a decade, the suicide rates have been higher and have risen faster among veterans as compared to non-veterans, with women veterans dying by suicide at twice the rate than non-veteran women. Veterans ages 18 to 34 having a suicide rate almost 3 times higher than non-veterans of the same age. The White House warned that young service members are at heightened risk. I've often said that the only one trusted... what happened? No, I'm still here. I've often said... I thought I saw something change on the screen. Did you throw something behind me? Anyway, quote, I've often said we have only one true sacred obligation as Americans to prepare and properly equip our women and men in uniform when we send them into harm's way, and to care for their families when they return, President Biden said. Yet, for too many who are serving or have served, we are falling short. The president said that in an average day, 17 veterans die by suicide right here at home. Through advances in science, medicine, and public health, we have learned a great deal about how to prevent suicide, the president said, adding that we increasingly know that what works, whether it's ensuring that firearms are stored safely, expanded access to suicide hotlines and mental health providers, or sending caring letters to people after a crisis. Quote, dedicated personnel in and out of government have devoted themselves to implementing these interventions, he continued. Anyway, the article goes on, obviously, with a bunch of sad statistics. And, I have one thing to say before I don't think it's a national security crisis. I think it's a serious issue, but I don't think national security is the way to put it. You know, it's scary to me, like how many people I've known that I've served with who have committed suicide. And especially the younger guys that I know who served during in Iraq and Afghanistan. A lot more of them than in my generation. Because after all, I served 97 to 2001. And, it was peacetime. It was peacetime when I was in. I didn't have it bad at all. But, I still feel a kinship to all my military service brothers and sisters out there. And, it's these statistics, how high it is right now. It's like there's lots of reasons. And, Biden can, because of what happened in Afghanistan, can be blamed for a bunch of them. But, I think it is a serious issue, and it's heartbreaking. And I think about the friends that we've lost. I think about the friends that I've almost lost because of this, and it's awful. Anyway, 2 more stories. I usually do happier stories, but I think I'm a little bit in a Batman mood.
I can make you happy.
How you going to do it? Oh, that's a good-looking guy. Is he a fan? Is he in the chat room right now? Should I go to my...
He pops up.
That's a good-looking person. Huh?
Isn't that turned out great.
Yeah, you're gonna message those to me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm kind of in a Batman kind of mood, and so these stories kind of cheered me up. So get this: Washington dad rescues daughter from sex traffickers, kills boyfriend he believes sold her for $1,000. That's a Batman shit right there, isn't it? He case staring at me when I read the headline. A Spokane, Washington father is accused of killing his daughter's boyfriend, believing he sold her into sex trafficking in Seattle last year. Police say they found a car abandoned in the 1800 block of East Everett Avenue on October 22nd, and a foul odor was emanating from the vehicle. Officers opened the trunk and found human remains inside. While investigating the case, detectives learned that 60-year-old John Eisman Sr. found out his juvenile daughter had been allegedly sold into sex trafficking organization in the Seattle area in October of 2020 for $1,000. Eisenman said his daughter's 19-year-old boyfriend may have been the one responsible for her sale. He was able to rescue his daughter and get her back to the Spokane area shortly after she was taken, police said. A month later, Eisenman tracked the victim's movements and I don't know if he's a victim, but I guess he's a victim. All right, tracked the victim's movements and followed him to a location at Airway Heights in Spokane County, police said. After a confrontation, Eisenman allegedly abducted the boyfriend, identified as Aaron Sorensen, tied him up and put him in the trunk of a vehicle. According to a news release issued by police, Eisenman hit the victim in the head with a cinder block and then stabbed him repeatedly in the abdomen, causing his death. Quote, after the homicide, Eisenman drove the vehicle to a remote area in North Spokane County and abandoned the car with the body still inside. The vehicle remained at that location until it was moved in October 2021 by a third party and driven to Spokane. At this point, it is not believed the third party knew the body was in the trunk. The vehicle with the body still in the trunk was abandoned at the Everett Avenue location while parked on Everett. Individuals were rummaging through the car and taking items when they made the gruesome discovery. Spokane police detailed. Eisenman was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder. Good. Police said prior to this incident, Eisenman had no recent criminal activity or violent criminal history. Nobody messed with his daughter before. Online Spokane County Detention Services record his bond is set at $1 million. That's it? That's it? Look, I know I said this is kind of a Batman story, but, Batman is a vigilante. All right, and vigilante behavior is what this guy did. All right, it's wrong. You shouldn't. If you can rescue your daughter, that's awesome. People make movies about that. But if you have to kill the boyfriend, killing the boyfriend, that wasn't really necessary. That's really not on you. I understand. They sold your daughter into slavery, probably sexual slavery. I get it. I really understand that motivation. John Eisenman Sr. I get the motivation. I understand why you did what you did. There's a little part of me, the secret part of me, that's a little bit happy you did. However, it's illegal. You shouldn't do that. If you can rescue your daughter, I can understand the urgency for you taking action in that. But when it comes to murdering the guy who sold her, that's not really up to you. As far as I'm concerned, that should be for courts. That should be for police. But still, that's badass. American badass. No record. Not really been in trouble before. But you messed with his daughter. What do you expect? What do you expect? It's a shame. It's a shame that not more of these people who are sold into slavery these days don't have fathers like that, because that should bring more attention to it. That incident brings more attention to that kind of thing, why legal means should be proceed, more in that case than some guy who probably thinks the cops aren't going to bring any justice. Anyway. And by the way, if you're so upset about slavery, Colin Kaepernick, $1,000, That's cheaper than slaves even in the 1700s, 1800s. Considering slaves are cheaper now than they've ever been. If you're worried about slavery, there's slavery today you can worry about. Anyway, last story before we get out of here. New York City dad fights off armed robbers posing as trick-or-treaters who force entry with an 8-year-old inside. NYPD says the would-be robbers said trick-or-treat before the victim answered the door. Duh, that sub-headline's stupid. Of course they did. You wouldn't be a trick-or-treater if you didn't say trick-or-treat. You know, there's some of those kids that came around trick-or-treating, and they didn't say trick-or-treat. That kind of upset me. I don't care how autistic you are. You need to participate in the world. You need to put your vibes out there. You need to let people hear your voice. That's why when I went up to Chick-fil-A the other day to get something to eat, and said this guy, he was seriously like an 18-year-old kid, but he sounded like a 12-year-old boy. It's like, you need to learn how to project, sound off like you got a pair. Anyway, in New York City, a dad survived a Halloween nightmare after fending off a trio of armed robbers who posed as trick-or-treaters and tried to force their way into his home, where his 8-year-old son was. Counting his candy, I'm sure. The incident, which was caught on video, happened around 10:30 p.m. Don't answer your door that late on Halloween. Anyway, on Nostrand Avenue in Brooklyn, Sheepshead Bay. Of course he's from Brooklyn. On October 31st. Really? Is that when it happened? New York City Police said. A male and female wearing Halloween costumes and masks knocked on the door at the 37-year-old victim's house and said trick or treat, according to the police. The video shows a man opening his door and giving the two costume individuals candy when the man pulls out his handgun and tries to force his way into the home. Holy cow. While the dad struggled to keep the armed intruder out of his house, the female ran down the stairs and fled the scene eastbound on Nostrand Avenue, police said. I think maybe she was surprised about it. A second male can be seen on the video running up the stairs and attempting to push his way past the victim. The two male suspects repeatedly punched the dad in the face while trying to force their way inside, according to the police. The dad was eventually able to fight off both men, push them outside, and lock his door. The two men then fled eastbound toward Nostrand Avenue, police said. Following the incident, a neighbor told the victim's 8-year-old son that his father is Superman. Was the father wearing a costume? Was he wearing a costume? The kid was answering a question from a half hour ago. Anyway, quote, I told him that your dad is a hero. Your dad's Superman. He fought off two guys, Missy Haggerty told WNBC TV. Police are continuing to search for the trio. Authorities describe the suspects as Rick and Morty. I'm kidding. That's not what the article says. Anyway, authorities describe the suspect as two dark-skinned males and a light-skinned female. What were their costumes? Yeah, it's just like hoodies and a mask. Hoodies and a scary mask. That's uncreative even for a 10, 12-year-old kid. You know what I'm saying? Just a hoodie. If a kid came to my door and he's just wearing a hoodie and jeans and a mask, that's not a costume, kid. And that's why Smarties exist, okay? That's why you give that kid Smarties, all right? Any kid that looks like they gave a damn about his costume, you give him the full-size candy bars. You know what I'm saying? That's what needs to happen on Halloween. You know what I'm saying? Is since they're coming to your house to extort you, that's what needs to happen on Halloween. It's like the best costume. If a group comes up, it's like kid with the best costume gets a full-size Snickers. Everyone else, and the kid that just, put some white paint on his face. All right. Sorry. You get Smarties. Since you're extorting me. Anyway, we come to the end of the show. I want to remind you to go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio. Become a patron. I would appreciate it. And I also have a Cash App. Use the hashtag ShockMonkeyRadio. There you can send me money, cash through Cash App or something like that. Just sell out some of your Bitcoin. It's not real money anyway. And send me it. Hashtag Shock Monkey Radio. Patreon.com/Shock Monkey Radio. This has been Shock Monkey Radio. I'm the Madman, and I love you.